Welcome to Sunday Night Football, live before luck. We've got a fun one here between Zach Wilson's Jets and Aiden O'Connell's Raiders. Just what you expect on a Sunday Night Football game. This show is sponsored by Owner's Box. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with EMac. You can find him on Twitter at EMacDFS. EMac, are you as excited about this one as I am?
Your lead-in sounded suspiciously like mine. My headline on the article, free on the Stochastic page, homepage right now for all Showdown slates, the primetime ones anyway. I said the title of this is The Jets, the Raiders, the Pain.
All jokes aside, though, I actually like this from a Showdown perspective, like from an NFL football game perspective.
Bad.
No, it's kind of fun. It is kind of fun. Mr. D Go Blue says Neil really wanted that Dowdle TD. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was all over Dowdle this week. He was like one of my just like dart throw flyers in large field GPPs. Still, I mean, he got to 79 yards and a touchdown. It's not like he completely broke the slate or anything. Like I was kind of hoping for 102 touchdowns in the second half kind of thing, but it helps. It's not bad. Well, he'll get the fire emoji at the very least. So we'll take that on Rico Dowdle. I was actually more into Zach Charbonnet because I thought he was going to be involved in the game either way, and he was kind of a big disappointment. So, but I'll take.
And guess what? Kenneth Walker said, "Hey, I can score touchdowns receiving now."
That was incredible. Yeah, that was good for Kenneth Walker. I'm a fan. All right. So we got two teams to talk about here. Is there a team here that you want to talk about? Let's start with quarterbacks. Talk about Zach Wilson. What's your interest level in Zach Wilson, EMac?
Ooh, well, let's see. Let me get to my notes. Where the heck did they go? So we have him as the fifth worst quarterback in the full slate. Okay, that's counting all 10 week 10 teams. I'm trying to find the silver lining here. Comes off his a career high 49 pass attempts in the last game, Neil. 33 completions, so 67.3%. That's not too shabby. Only 263 yards. That is a career, season high, but no touchdowns. He was sacked 8 times, but he did not throw an interception. He lost 2 of his 3 fumbles. He's so bad. But he is one of 2 quarterbacks in this game, and technically he has a slightly higher projection. It's been changing throughout the week, but he's had a slightly higher projection the last time I looked against Aiden O'Connell. This is what we call in the politics world too close to call. We will be going to a recount.
He's got a great matchup against this Raiders defense.
He has a great matchup. He is the more experienced of the 2 quarterbacks.
True.
That's about all I got. He hits well with the older ladies. Rumor has it.
He does do well with the older ladies. Keep your wife away from Zach Wilson. He likes those married ladies.
Did you know he has only 5 touchdowns in 8 games? And I'm counting that the Aaron Rodgers got hurt so early in that game. We may as well just count that as a Zach Wilson start.
True.
5 touchdowns, 5 picks in 8 games.
It's not great.
But you know who he likes?
Older ladies. We just went over that.
Well, no, he loves older ladies.
Oh, that's right.
He likes Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, it is good that he's at least feeding his best player. Like,
yes.
If you're going to ask for one thing from your not great quarterback, throw it to your best player. That's at least for us fantasy players. We like it.
Doesn't it seem that like that's a big ask for some quarterbacks out there these days?
It does,
like including
it does
Brian Hoyer for the Raiders in that one game. Yeah, that didn't work out.
Well, I'll say this for Zach Wilson, just so people know the context of it, because we talk about it, it's sometimes hard to gauge, like when you're talking about quarterback on 1 game slate, obviously always playable. He actually looks great in the single game tool. Like he has positive leverage both in the captain spot and in the flex spot. We have Zach Wilson at 9% captain ownership. Excuse me, 11% chance of being optimal in the captain in this game. 43% util ownership, 50% chance of being optimal in the util. So from a leverage standpoint, he actually looks really good on this slate. He is somebody that he had a big game. I think that was one of the Showdown slates that Jesse downside of me won, was a Zach Wilson slate where he was just really underowned and went off. It's a 1 game slate. You don't need him to be great. You just need him to put up, a touchdown or 2, put up some fantasy points. So can work out. He's going to be a big part of my lineups today. He's obviously, as I said, he's got the much better matchup than Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell facing a tough Jets defense, and Zach Wilson faces a not so great Raiders defense. I'm looking at just the DVOA. Jets are 4th in terms of pass DVOA. They're 21st in terms of rush DVOA, so they do give it up on the ground a little bit. But then the Raiders are 15th in terms of pass DVOA, 29th in terms of run DVOA. So easier spot for Zach Wilson than AOC. For me, he's going to be in over 50% of my lineup. So how about you, EMac?
I will be having a fair amount of the quarterbacks. I'm not as enthralled by them in the multiplier slot, however, because I think they really are going to need 2 touchdowns to get it, and I don't know that either one has 2 touchdowns in them.
Yeah, I mean, I get sure. I mean, especially for a quarterback, you're right. Like you don't get as many points for a touchdown throwing the ball. So it is a little bit tougher to play them. But as I said, we do have positive leverage on Zach Wilson. So if you're not playing him in the captain spot, when you have Zach Wilson in the flex, are you going to be pairing him with pass catchers, forcing that pairing?
I have been doing that. I don't know how effective that's been. I mean, it makes sense to do it that way. I have it set as at 1. I've started doing that since I've been doing shows with you. I used to make different types of groups that would sort of account for it. But now I just make sure if I have the quarterback in, because I heard Alex talking about it too. And it's so, you guys have won significantly more than I have in DFS. So I thought, hey, maybe I'll give this a little try. So I've been doing that for the last several weeks. Now I make it a decision point. Almost always I will have, if it's the captain quarterback, I will have 2 pass catchers with them. Do we really want to go that route tonight? Because if I just besmirch the good name of both these guys, I mean, what's the over under for passing touchdowns combined in this game is what, 2.5?
I have no idea, but that sounds about right. Yeah.
So who gets the 3rd touchdown? Or I guess the 2nd in this case. So that's something that I've been playing around with a little bit more in the settings. Again, I think what I was doing previously was getting enough of it, but now I make it a requirement. And that's a difference that sometimes you'll want to set groups where if you're mass multi-entering the MME, the 150, you'll want to set groups that think of it. If you have your defense, you may want to boost your running back, with the theory being then you're running, it's a defensive game and your running back gets to run out the clock. Or like Neil, maybe you want to go with in this scenario, I want a Rico Dowdle in there, right? So you can apply different rules and then say, just add or subtract off of the projection, a percentage of it. Or you can lock them in or say, I want 2 of 3 or whatever. And that's something I've gone away from that, the percentage boost a fair amount.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah. I'm good with it though. I'm good with that.
So yeah, for me, when I have a quarterback in the captain spot, if we're using Fantasy Cruncher, for example, if I have a quarterback in the captain spot, one of these quarterbacks where they're not particularly great rushing quarterbacks, I only require, so that's how I do. I require 1 pass catcher typically in the flex, but then I give boost to all of the pass catchers, different levels of boost, and I typically end up with at least 2. We saw on Tuesday, speaking of, you say it usually works. Tuesday, we actually saw Bryce Young naked was in the winning lineup. It just like towed that fine line where like Adam Thielen put up the most fantasy points for the Panthers, but he was too expensive to make it into that lineup. So it was like Bryce Young with 7 fantasy points ended up being the one Panthers player in the winning lineup. So it does happen from time to time when you like where a quarterback can get in there even without rushing a ton. I think Bryce Young only had like 20 rushing yards, but still got there. It can happen. It's kind of a rare situation for a naked non-rushing quarterback to make it into the winning lineup, but absolutely can happen from time to time. And this is a kind of ugly game where it also could happen just because 7-8 fantasy points might be enough if they spread the ball around. Can absolutely work out that way. So you say you have interest in both quarterbacks. Who do you like better between Zach Wilson and Aiden O'Connell?
Ultimately, I landed with, it's tough. Aiden O'Connell has the better position players, but this is just the 4th time he's taking the field in any form or fashion in the National Football League. Zach Wilson at least has a season and a half of starts under his belt. And I think that is, while we know what we're getting from Zach Wilson, he may make less mistakes, right? And the game may be a little, I don't want to say easier, but he may have better reaction times than O'Connell. And I went back and forth on this, and I was looking at their, college stats and this, that, and the other. And this is just, I was trying to find some sort of differentiation. And ultimately I said, Wilson has the experience. They both have a good number one receiver. O'Connell has the better, the more polished position players, because Jacobs, league's leading rusher last year, Devontae Adams, all pro for two different teams, right? They're more accomplished at this point than Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson.
True.
It's not like they're dramatically above them, but they may be able to help him out a little bit more than the other guys that are really, only have two. And Breece Hall doesn't even have 2 years under his belt as a starter because of the knee injury. So.
And as far as Aiden O'Connell goes, just looking at the single game tool, we've got him at 6% projected ownership at captain, 5% chance to be an optimal, 36% util ownership, 40% chance to be an optimal. So he looks better, as you indicated, in the util rather than the captain, but still making it into the optimal lineup 45% of the time. So certainly both playable. But I don't think the quarterbacks are the most interesting part of this slate. All we can really say is, neither of them is a great rusher. Zach Wilson rushes for under 20 yards per game, maybe has a little bit more rushing upside than Aiden O'Connell has shown so far in his career. 3 games, he has, I think, 3 rushing attempts for 3 yards and 1 touchdown, I will say.
And a touchdown because, of course.
But I think the more interesting parts to talk about in this game, because we've got some players that people might not know very well at other positions. So I think we should just move on and talk about running backs, and I'll open it up to you. Who do you like at running back today? And should we just do both teams
I actually
together?
like going by position. I know we're making this up on the fly, but these teams are so evenly matched from a fantasy perspective.
They are. That's true.
We're really splitting hairs all the way down. I mean, you can go down through tight ends and even defenses and the kickers, for the love of God. We're just splitting hairs on this. So let's we haven't done it in this particular fashion. So looking at the running backs, we'll just hit Breece Hall first, since we'll just keep going with the away team first here. But so he got 20 touches on Monday Night Football against the Chargers, 60 total yards. So not great, but volume was there. Tonight, he is going against the 29th ranked rushing DVOA. He has 13 targets over the last 2 games. The nice thing about him getting targets, well, one, Wilson turned into captain checkdown in the last game. But the nice thing about Hall getting targets is that's a little bit more in space for him. So anything where he's not having to shed the first tackler or rely on the line to create a hole, if he's going to have a chance to hit his stride at close to full speed, then that's a good thing, right? So we like that. He also more or less has a stranglehold on the position. You've got Dalvin Cook, who has 2 carries in each of the last 2 games. You've got Michael Carter, who has 2 total over the last 2 games, but Carter had 6 targets in the last game. So
all
Dalvin
like in the
Cook,
last 2 minutes. It was just like they're peppering him at the end there. That's fun.
Which, yes, but it does seem that Dalvin Cook is just, apologies to your shout out to your new quarterback, but apologies to the Minnesota Vikings. Dalvin Cook, 4 Pro Bowls, I believe, done at age 28.
I don't care. He's not on the Vikings anymore. Good.
Yeah,
good.
It's just shocking. And then Nick Bodden, he's got 14 snaps over the last 2 games. So it's really Breece Hall and then probably Michael Carter, not to be confused with Michael Carter, who also plays defense. Michael Carter, that's third.
Yep, just looking at as you said, I'm looking at just week 9. Good to have the 2-game sample size pulled up, but 48 snaps for Breece Hall in the last one, 23 for Michael Carter. It was a little bit discouraging for me from like a liking Breece Hall standpoint to see how much they just went fully to Michael Carter at the end of that game when they were in hurry up mode. But Michael Carter ended up getting, as you said, he ran 23 routes, 6 targets in that game. Breece Hall still had 4 targets on 23 routes run as well. So it's not like he's not involved in the passing game. But those are really the 2 that you want. Dalvin Cook only played 6 snaps, had 2 rushing attempts in that last game, ran 3 routes and had 2 targets. So he's pretty clearly third in the pecking order behind Breece Hall and Michael Carter. What about the Raiders? Who do you like on the Raiders? I mean, obviously we know it's Josh Jacobs. How much do you like Josh Jacobs and or any other Raiders?
So Breece Hall and Josh Jacobs are two of my three favorite captains tonight.
Okay.
Jacobs gets the slight edge because he's at home. He's the rushing title holder, and though we didn't see it in the last time O'Connell was under center, we did see that first game where he ended up throwing like 11 times to Jacobs. Now that's probably never going to happen again, but 6 or 7 targets seems reasonable. So the other thing that you want to remember is that even though we have Amir Abdullah and Zamir White, right, both capable, let's just call them co-RB3s because that's what they really are in this, because Jacobs is option 1 and option 2. They're going to share in some form or fashion somewhere between 18 and 24 snaps. That's about 20 to 30% of the snap share is going to be with those guys. They can both run the ball. They can both catch the ball. Technically, Abdullah is the receiving back, if you will. He just, he's been around. He's in his age 30 season. Zamir White's 24, and it just seems that Abdullah just been there. Pass projection is the key. I think that probably gets in the slide edge over Zamir White in that aspect of the game. But like, would it shock you if either one of them had 2 targets and the other one didn't? No. It's not like some years we've seen the Raiders where it's like, that's the pass catching back and that's the running back. It hasn't really been the case the last couple of years. Oh, by the way, we have new coaching. We have a new general manager. We have new everything pretty much for the Raiders, not to bury that lead. Why am I blanking on its name? The former linebackers, they're now their coach, Antonio Pierce, is the coach of Las Vegas. Interesting here that we get a whole. I'm sure the announcers are just going to talk nonstop about that. But the fact that Mark Davis is eating $85 million in severance and guaranteed contracts by getting rid of pretty much anybody, all former Patriots, anybody with Patriots ties except for Jacoby Myers, has been benched or no longer in the building. The benched would be Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's just very, very interesting. So Jacobs and Breece Hall are each going to see vast majority of the work, probably 80% of the touches or opportunities, and 75 to 80% of the plays. Abdullah and White, coin flip. We don't really need them because there are going to be some cheaper people we'll talk about when we get to the receivers. And then you have Jacob Johnson, who was in the concussion protocol. I didn't see if he's out or not.
Inactive.
Okay. Point being, I think he has like 1 carry or 2 carries this season. So even when he was playing, he was a blocker at best, but they don't really use fullback blocking all that often. So that's our running backs. We have 1 clear running back on each side, and then probably Carter is the only other one I really would want to play from either team. Michael Carter.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm just putting them back together to summarize our mirror images.
I was thinking you were talking Raiders, so I was like, DeAndre Carter. Why are we talking about DeAndre Carter, running back?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Michael Carter. And then everybody else, no thank you on the running back.
I think that is a fair assessment. Yeah, just looking at last week, I mean, we talked about the Jets. Let me look at the snap counts for the Raiders. Yeah, Amir Abdullah played 8 snaps. Zamir White played 5. Josh Jacobs played 46. I think that's a fair way to play it. Maybe in a 150, if you're MMEing Amir Abdullah, Zamir White, then you start playing those guys. There's obviously, they have contingent value if Josh Jacobs gets hurt. If the game is a blowout, there are ways those guys get involved, but in the regular game script, they're just not very involved in the game. So they're really only like MMEing, playing a ton of lineups. The real question, EMac, is how many times I'm setting the over at 3.5 times. They pan to the sideline of the Raiders and talk about how they have all of the practice squad guys there now with Antonio Pierce as the coach. That was one of his big changes. I don't know if you heard this, EMac, that one of his big changes is that he has the practice squad guys go into the game, suiting up for the game now so they can cheer on the rest of the team. So my guess is they're going to be talking about that a lot on the sidelines as well.
Weren't they just on the sidelines before anyway? I just always assumed that half the guys that were there that weren't dressed were either injured players or inactives.
No, they were not.
But now they're
I actually have no
dressed.
idea how common practice is, but I know the Raiders had not been prior to Antonio Pierce taking over. All right, so wide receivers to me is the most interesting position to talk about. Before we talk about wide receivers, though, I do want to say that our sponsor is Owner's Box. Fantastic. I have not checked the overlay for Sunday Night Football yet, but there's typically a lot of overlay on Owner's Box. If anybody, we had people in chat last week updating us on what the what the level of fill is for Owner's Box for Sunday Night Football, and it was like 50%, like halfway through the show last week. So if you have not yet signed up for Owner's Box, the link is in the description of this video. I'm going to throw it in chat as well. But Owner's Box, when you sign up using our link, you're going to get your first deposit matched up to $500. That is going to be a drip bonus as you play. You're going to get paid out. So you don't get it immediately when you put your money in. If you want to play $50 a night, don't put in 25 expecting to be able to play 50. You're only going to be able to play tonight what you put in, but you're going to get your money back in a drip bonus as you go. On top of that, you're going to get two $5 entries, one of them being to their lightning lineups, which is essentially like a cash game. Kind of a fun, really simple concept where you're just choosing one of the three lineups they give you. You can add more lineups if you want for another multiplier, but it's cool. It's a fun way to play. And then another $5 entry to whatever contest you want to play as well. So use our link when you sign up for Owner's Box. Take advantage of that overlay tonight. You should always be taking advantage of overlay when you can. I'm going to throw the link into chat in a minute. I'm going to go find it, but I'll set you up, EMac. Start talking about these wide receivers, whichever team you want to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go with New York here. We'll just continue that theme. So we have Garrett Wilson is dramatically getting the majority of the targets here. He has 38 over the last 3 games. I believe he has 12 or more in 4 games this season. 22 receptions over the last 3 games, 270 yards. He has not scored a touchdown since week 2, but that could easily change tonight. Alan Lazard probably wishes Aaron Rodgers was around. Heck, Garrett Wilson probably wishes Aaron Rodgers was under center. Lazard has a half dozen targets in each of the last 2 games coming out of the bye, but I think he has just 4 or 5 catches on this. So he's generally not the first read. He is kind of the panic read, or how I said Zach Wilson had a little bit more experience than Aiden. He probably can make it beyond 1 read, but may or may not be running for his life at that point. Whereas O'Connell can make it to the first read, and that's it. Slight difference there. But I think Alan Lazard has kind of been the odd man out. Randall Cobb is healthy, but he did not play. I can't remember if he was inactive or not, but he didn't play.
He's inactive.
Okay, he's inactive. Here's your punch, or your guy on DK cash games, Xavier Gibson. He's got the wide receiver role. I believe he is at the DK minimum, or he's under $600. Obviously, since McCole Hardman got traded back to Kansas City, the wide receiver 3 job was up in the air. Gibson has taken it. He also returns punts and kickoffs. And the other key thing, he gets most of the snaps. They don't really run anybody else. You do get a little bit of Malik Taylor. He's the 4th wideout. He did get, I think he has 4 targets on the season. He got 2 of them last week when there was a lot of passing volume with those 49 attempts. So this is really Garrett Wilson. I'm ambivalent towards Alan Lazard, and then definitely Xavier Gibson. We're not going to be alone in that assessment, but on DK, he just kind of makes it all come together. When you look to the Raiders, Devontae Adams, just rough season, just absolutely, just nothing has gone right for him. They're even actively trying to get him the ball, and it's really not working out that well. So I have to think that's kind of going to continue, right? Why would you throw it to a guy who's a 2-time All-Pro for 2 different teams? But at this point, the discount for Jacoby Myers makes this an absolute tie. So it's not like Devontae Adams is bad anymore. This is like one of those lost seasons, right? Like sometimes you see the baseball players where it's just like, you don't have it this season, or you get an NBA player who has the worst shooting percentage of their career, and then that 1 year turns out to just be some anomaly, right? That's kind of what's happening right now to Devontae Adams. It just isn't working out for him. The interesting thing is Hunter Renfrow has 7 targets over the last 2 games. I think he has 10 over the last 3. He looked like he was just basically done. They just had no use for him. Here he's kind of back in our lives a little bit. I want to say he's 1,800 on DK. Kind of interesting. We aren't going to need to do the extreme punts like we were talking about the Raiders running back. You don't really need to go there. I'd rather roll the dice with somebody like Hunter Renfrow, 2 catches, 25 yards, and all of a sudden he could find his way into the optimal lineup. I don't think you also need to this game, though we did talk about them in prior when we had the Raiders on in our other primetime games. But Trey Tucker and DeAndre Carter, we don't really need to go there. DeAndre Carter probably won't see the field very much outside of being a return man tonight because everybody's healthy again. And then Trey Tucker is going to be, battling Hunter Renfrow for the snaps, with neither really getting any after Myers or Adams. But I think it's going to be Wilson is number 1 for me. Gibson's number 2 because he's so cheap. Then for me, it's actually Jacoby Myers and then Devontae Adams. But that means I'm not avoiding Devontae Adams. That's just if I'm building one lineup. The salary cap for Adams is kind of a bit much. And if I have to cut something somewhere, it's easiest to cut him because I'd rather try to get both running backs and Wilson in my lineup. Garrett, that is.
Yeah. Like obviously Devontae Adams, he has the second best projection of any wide receiver behind Garrett Wilson. Actually has the higher projection than Devontae Adams. It's just, as you said, it's going to be hard to get there. The field is getting there 40%. Like if you were a pay up to be contrarian option, I would think Devontae Adams is somebody I'd love to go to, but because the field is going there so much, I'm probably going to end up underweight to the field just because that is too much for a guy who is as expensive as Devontae Adams. As you said, though, we do have some nice pay down options, Xavier Gibson being the most obvious. I would push back a little bit on you don't have to go to Trey Tucker. I mean, you don't have to. Okay, I guess I agree with that statement, but I don't hate going to Trey Tucker in large fields just because he ran routes on 36% of dropbacks last week, and he's the kind of guy he's just a burner who can put up fantasy points in a hurry. So I kind of like Trey Tucker as a lower owned option. And what do we have? We have him at 1% captain ownership, 12% util ownership. So he's not going completely under-owned or not going completely unowned, but I think he's still somebody that if you're playing 20 lineups, I would say you want to have at least 1 share of Trey Tucker. So that's, I would probably have 3 shares of Trey Tucker in 20 lineups. So that's my level of it. It's not like I'm going crazy for him, but going relatively low owned, and he's a guy who can put up a score in a hurry. The other one, I think that you gave a good assessment of all of these receivers. I was sort of surprised, EMac, to see that Jacoby Myers was not projected better than he is. Like Jacoby Myers only projected for about 10 fantasy points given the season he has been having. But just looking at last week, he only ran routes on 68% of dropbacks. And for the season, he has run routes on 83% of dropbacks to Devontae Adams 86. For whatever reason, last game, Devontae Adams 88%, Jacoby Myers just 68%. And then you had Trey Tucker 36%, Hunter Renfrow 32%, DeAndre Carter 16%. So that's where you're getting really, really kind of thin. But just to kind of narrow down those like off the wall receiving options for the Raiders, it would be Trey Tucker ahead of DeAndre Carter for me. But as far as how would you rank? So let me give you a number of receivers and see what you think. So if I throw in these names, I'll start with Hunter Renfrow, Trey Tucker, Xavier Gibson, Malik Taylor, DeAndre Carter. How would you rank those 5?
Renfrow 1, Tucker is probably 2, Gibson 3, and then we're splitting hairs.
Interesting. So I thought for sure you were going to say Gibson number 1. Is it just because of the lower ownership on the Raiders guys?
While we like Gibson, he has, 10 targets total on the season. Right?
Sure.
So even though he technically is the wide receiver 3, have we seen it? Hey, you know who was also the wide receiver for 3? Hunter Renfrow, and we aren't running to go get him, right? So it's kind of a cost. It's a cost function. But as I'm trying to put together my cash game lineup here, it looks like I'm probably going to leave like 1,000 plus on the table, just the way it's shaking out. Or I'm going to end up with what probably everybody is doing and putting in Lazard. But there are some team free money head-to-heads in the DK lobby, username EMac, the $1, because, I am the last of the big spenders.
The last of the big spenders. Yeah, I guess I'll just finish out reading just the route participation from last week for the Jets, since I've done it for other positions. We had Garrett Wilson at 90% of route participation last week. Alan Lazard, 81%, so right behind Wilson. Then a drop down. As far as wide receivers go, next in line was Xavier Gibson at 55%. We did have Tyler Conklin at 60% ahead of him. Then we had CJ Uzama at 29%, Malik Taylor at just 24%. So if you're trying to differentiate in terms of just opportunities last week, because last week, going into last week, I was like, I feel like Xavier Gibson and Malik Taylor were pretty comparable dart throws. It just turned out that Gibson was on the field for 55% of dropbacks, or ran routes on 55%. Taylor just 24%. So Gibson did kind of separate himself, at least in that one game. Of course, as we know, that's a one game sample size. These things can flip game to game. Who knows? But Gibson feels like the safer bet, at least for the Jets. Any other thoughts on wide receivers here?
No, but you guys really want to take my cash game lineups because I just don't feel good about it. And by the way, I did get swept. I lost. I played one lineup on Thursday. I lost every head-to-head I played.
Oof. It's not great, EMac.
It's not good. It's not good, Bob. Not good. No, nothing else on the wide receivers, but we can quickly hit the tight ends here. Yep. So let's go with New York. We've got Tyler Conklin, who is totally Mr. Steady Eddie. You do have CJ Uzoma, who had 5 targets or 6 targets in the last game that kind of popped up out of nowhere. But we know Uzoma is an absolutely capable tight end, and he would be like the tight end 1 if Conklin wasn't on the team. Jeremy Rucker is usually on the field for, 10 or 15 snaps per game. He has 1 target in each of his last 5 appearances. So he will get 1 target, apparently. That's in his contract. But hard to be excited about him. I'd rather go with Michael Carter, Gibson, or Hunter Renfrow, a variety of these guys. But I think Conklin very much in play. Uzoma, fine. It's just that we don't really need that kind of a punt tonight. If we look at I want to hear the routes for Austin Hooper, because I don't think he ran very many last week. But Michael Myers has 17 of his 19 targets over the last 5 games. Remember, he was absolutely quiet for the first 3 games. This season, he has kind of come on. You have Austin Hooper, who has just hardly been on the field for the most part the last couple weeks, because Michael Myers played on nearly 90% of the snaps in that time frame. And I keep going the last 2 weeks because I'm just going back to their bye. Is essentially what I'm looking at there. And then Jesper Horsted has played 6 snaps all season. He caught his 1 target for 4 yards, but leave him. How many did Hooper run? How many routes did Hooper run last week?
So I'll go over all of them. Okay, I guess I did it for the Jets. I did not do it with the Raiders all pass catchers. So it was Devontae Adams ran 88% of routes, down to Jacoby Myers was still number 2, but just at 68%. Michael Mayer did run 48% of routes. And I should say, much smaller sample size for the Raiders and the Jets. So the Jets actually had a lot of routes run. 88% of route participation for Devontae Adams. That was just 22 routes run. So it is many fewer routes in general run by the Raiders last week. So you can keep that in mind. But we had Michael Mayer ran 12 routes. That's 48%. Josh Jacobs, 40%. Trey Tucker, 36%. Renfrow, 32%. And then Austin Hooper ran just 32%. Then you drop down to DeAndre Carter at 16%. So yeah, Michael Mayer, 48% to Austin Hooper's 32% in week 9. But the difference there is just 12 routes run for Michael Mayer to 8 for Austin Hooper. So it's like sort of within that game, an even smaller sample size, because they just weren't dropping back all that much.
All right. I'm putting in, I see my head-to-heads were gobbled up. So I'm putting in another 10. Enjoy.
Man of the people. Look at this guy.
Team free money needs to be punished. We had a rough night last night, starting with Markelle Fultz being scratched literally after a lock.
And EMac is definitely not hustling you by reminding you that he lost all of his head-to-heads. He played 4 that week, and now he's got 400 going tonight. But it's not a hustle at all.
No, right. I was like 0-20. It was not good.
All right. So
the best part, I believe Seth did not end up playing me. So
nice.
I won that one.
You avoided a loss.
I didn't lose to him.
Nice job. All right, that's fun. What happened to, I'm curious about Irvin Charles, actually, just because I felt like he was I didn't even factor him in going into the game. Oh, he only ran 1 route. Okay. I thought I remembered hearing his name a couple times and it scared me a little bit, but apparently he only ran 1 route in that last game. So we can, I think, continue to not play Irvin Charles. All right. Anything else? Any other notes on the tight ends?
Nope. Shall we do kickers in defense?
So just getting back to the tight ends in terms of projection, Tyler Conklin, the number 1 projected tight end. Michael Mayer, number 2. I think Tyler Conklin was 60% route participation. Michael Mayer at 48%. Austin Hooper, the 3rd best projected, ran 32% of routes. And then CJ Uzama, I think I read it off. What was it? It was 29% route participation for CJ Uzama last week. So there you have. Those are the 4 that I would. Jeremy Ruckert, I guess you could play. We've got him projected for just under 2 fantasy points. He did run 10 routes, so 17% route participation. He's a large field GPP. Most of them, I'd say, the only players
hard coded to receive 1 target.
Yeah, right. The only players you're playing outside of like huge field GPPs, you would consider maybe playing Conklin or Mayer, but Hooper, Uzama, Ruckert, just large field GPP plays, all projected for around 5% ownership. All right, what notes on kickers and defenses, EMac?
All right. Sorry, I'm just going to enter a few more lineups here, and then I will download my contest file. Going back to the notes here. So Max Crosby, awesome. He is just absolutely awesome. He is dealing with the sore knee. The Jets are allowing 4 sacks per game. Crosby's got to get 1, right? For sure. And I think the team does pretty well tonight against the Jets. If we look at the New York defense, I'd actually, because the Raiders are at home, I rank them slightly higher than the Jets. But if this was in New York, I would still say, or I would go with the Jets. So I said to the, I'm not going to read it because we're running short on time here, but I made a nice reference to the New York sack exchange of the 80s. That is probably before anybody's time watching.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, Mark Gastineau, you may know his daughter and his wife for being on some reality TV show. I don't even know what it was called. But yeah, Marty Lyons, Joe Klecko, that was the crew, just for those that were wondering. So Vegas does have 16 turnovers, which is the 2nd most in the league. So we have one team that doesn't turn over the ball that much, but they get sacked all the time. And then we have the other team that doesn't give up that many sacks, about league average, but they give up the ball a lot. When we get to the kickers, Greg is no longer the leg Zerline. That it's sad. He has made 18 of 19 field goals this season. His only miss was from 50 yards. Did you know that over his last 34, this is going back 3 seasons and plus this year, so 3 and change, he has 34 attempts from beyond 50 yards. He has made just 12.
No way.
That is not good. That is not good. But again, he's 18 of 19 this season. He's great inside of 40. Even inside, right. It looked like about 43 was randomly his cutoff, but solid, right? But yeah, you're not going to get the distance. There you have Daniel Carlson, who I think he was the All-Pro kicker last year, if I remember correctly. He is, and the year before he was 2nd overall. I think we had this conversation because you were asking about what an All-Pro is. They are the best of the best at their position. But he was working through a groin injury. But he was the guy I thought would ultimately take over for Justin Tucker. It's the easiest way to say it. Plus, he gets to kick in a dome. Justin Tucker does not. So I do like Daniel Carlson.
Okay. Some interest in Daniel Carlson. Not trusting Greg the leg. Defenses obviously seem great here. Any final thoughts on any individual players, EMac?
I don't think we need to play Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the only time even if O'Connell melts down, Garoppolo's not coming in. I think he's only going to come in for an injury at this point. What else?
Favorite captain?
I think we hit everybody. Favorite captain is Jacobs. Number 2, Breece Hall. Number 3, Devontae Adams. You're going to pay for it. But those are my top 3.
Okay. Let's see. I'm adjusting things in my lineups. This is the part where I'm realizing, oh shit, I got to get my lineups in before we look at the lineup generator. So I'm just really quickly making sure I have a good set of lineups in. I think that I'm close to doing these, and then we're about to take a look at the lineup generator. Give me 1 second though, I just want to get these done before we start. And sure. we do have until 7:20 or 8:20 Eastern today, right? So
yes, we do.
Yeah, so it's not we still have plenty of time to look at lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel. Just give me 1 second, guys. I want to make sure I've got some lineups in place before we start doing that, because I don't want to forget when we're looking at the lineup generator. I'd say Sorry, who did you say is your favorite captain?
Jacobs.
Okay, Jacob. Oh, and Breece Hall, you said was one of your
Breece Hall
two of your favorite three, and who was your third?
And I would Devontae Adams.
Okay, so you're just playing the studs. You're not really going to the quarterbacks.
Well, they would be like 6 and 7. Jacoby Myers is probably my fourth.
Okay. Would you consider playing?
He still has the stink of being a Patriot on him, and that seems to be a bad thing at this point. if you're in Las Vegas,
would you consider playing somebody like Gibson at captain?
I haven't made any lineups. I don't know that we need to go there, but you could literally play every other stud if you wanted to. You will not be alone in that, but I don't think it's terrible. I mean, because even if he hardly performs and you've got the other 5 guys that get most of the production, you're going to be happy.
Right. You're definitely not dead in that scenario. All right. I am going to get these lineups in, and then we can be good to go.
I would say we don't have. Wow, we have Ruckert and Uzoma projected about the same. I would setting aside the 5 targets from last week for Uzoma, he's still the better play over Ruckert.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see that they're getting similar ownership. I was thinking Ruckert would be a great getting no ownership kind of play just for large field GPPs, but we actually have the 2 of them at very similar ownership. So yeah, in that case, if they're getting similar ownership, I'd just go to CJ Uzoma. Although it was Uzoma who had it bounce off his shoulder pad, right? Or what would have been the game winner?
Yes, I believe so.
So there's that. that was brutal. I had some flash drafts that really needed the touchdown for Zach Wilson. I think I would have won some of my flash drafts if
you degen even more than I do. I don't get it.
I love flash drafts. I just think flash drafts are really beatable, essentially. All right, I'm going to pull up the lineup generator. We're going to take a look at some DraftKings and FanDuel lineups here. And now that I've got it up, I am going to throw that link into chat as well. I've got it ready here. Am I in the right spot? Let me make sure I've got the right file. There's the generator package. All right. Pulling up I'm going to throw the link for lineup generator into chat. And it's, as you know, EMac, I'm a big proponent of the lineup generator. I think obviously all of our tools are great, but just from not everybody wants to be spending, $100, north of $100. I think from a value perspective, this is the best value on the entire market is $14.95 per week for the lineup generator. I did just put the link into chat if anybody wants to check it out. Again, it is $14.95 per week. That includes FanDuel lineups, DraftKings lineups. It includes main slates. It includes every primetime showdown slate. All of that is included in the lineup generator, and
including
it makes
the European games.
Including the European, those are included as primetime showdown slates. And every lineup you get in the lineup generator has been run through the stochastic sim. So obviously, it's not the same as doing the sims yourself. If you want to have control over the lineups that it's creating with the sims or the lineups they're getting through, but it's still it's probably better than doing it yourself because no bias included. It's just these lineups have been run through the stochastic sims. Any bad lineups have been vetted. They're not included in the lineup generator. So every lineup you get here is a long-term profitable lineup according to the stochastic sims, and you still have plenty of say just in terms of choosing which lineups you want to play from the lineup generator. You can obviously swap out players, etc. So I think it's a fantastic deal. Check it out. Let's take a look at we'll start with some DraftKings Showdown lineups, and then we'll do FanDuel single game as well. So for DraftKings Showdown, EMac, I'm going to do all lineups. You can choose chalky, balance, or contrarian. I'm just going to do all lineups, get a mix here. And I just use the standard projections. Typically, I don't have strong opinions on how games are going to go most of the time. And this game, definitely one that I don't have a particularly strong opinion about how it's going to go. Do you care, EMac? Do you want me to try one of these different buckets or just
but I would say it's worth playing around with because it may inform your opinions of what you think is going to happen if it's this type of game. Some players pop that you would not think of at all. And it's, again, because it's getting to the ROI and it's saying, hey, if this person does well, and it's not like they're that far off from these guys here, but they're less owned, there's better leverage, etc. And that gets you the ROI, right? And these they get sorted by the ROI. We don't necessarily see it on this like we do on the Sims, but that's why it's presenting these lineups to you, because it's saying, hey, if this happens, it's sort of, I don't want to say it's disguised. It's under the cloak of, oh, this is a unique lineup, or this is a less popular lineup, or this is a contrarian lineup. Those are just other ways of saying, hey, we've still sorted it out to be positive EV. The contrarian ones, yes, it's a longer time horizon to get there, but sometimes you look at some of these players and you're just like, I would have never put that guy in there when I'm doing all my rules and all this other. Like, that combination would have never come up. And you're like, damn, why didn't I think of it that way? Or we ran one the other on our last show that left like $3,000.
I leave 3,000 on the table all the time.
Perfectly good lineup. I got zero issues with this one, right?
Yeah.
So.
People often ask me like, oh, I'm leaving 800 on the table. Is that too much? And I'm like, no, that's 3,000 is nothing. Like I pretty regularly leave 3,000 on the table. So no concerns about that. Yeah, that's a good rundown of just the benefits of the lineup generator. But for this, we're just going to be doing standard projections. All right, first lineup we see here, and this one is leaving just 800 on the table, so which is totally fine. And to your point, EMac, I have more recently, initially I always looked at the contrarian lineups, and I agree, like these are just in the if you use the chalky lineups, you can actually still find good lineups for large field GPPs in the chalky lineup. So I've kind of gone more towards those when using the lineup generator, just because you don't get as many players that I'm like, I don't really want to play that guy. Although you did, I think the last time we did this, Tanner Hudson was included in there, and he had a great game.
Big day today.
Today again. All right, so in this one we get Davante Adams at captain. No Aiden O'Connell. We do have Zach Wilson in this one, and I like to see that because we have Zach Wilson in there. We've also got one of his pass catchers in Garrett Wilson. This looks like it's mostly just the best plays on the slate. We've got Davante Adams in there, Garrett Wilson in there, Zach Wilson in there. Obviously, we don't have either of the running backs. We don't have Josh Jacobs or Breece Hall, but we've got a strong Raiders onslaught with Jacoby Myers, Michael Mayer, and Trey Tucker. So this is just a full-on 4 Raiders pass catchers without the quarterback. We just saw this win on Thursday. There was no, we saw, I think we had 4 Bears pass catchers without the quarterback on Thursday. So certainly can work out. And this is a lineup that probably won't be duped a ton because it is leaving 800 on the table, and it doesn't have the Raiders quarterback. It does have 4 pass catchers, and that's certainly viable, particularly in a low-scoring game. Like, it's certainly possible for 4 pass catchers to get there without the quarterback, particularly if there's no touchdowns. You're just getting PPR points throughout it. So, all right. I'm being rude to you. I don't know why I'm being rude to you. All right.
Me?
Yeah, Buddha says, why is the guy with the hat being rude to the guy with the red shirt? Very short with him. First time tuning in. That is what I hear. I'm not trying to be rude to EMac. Sorry. Apologies if I'm being rude to
No,
EMac.
He's giving me a second to put all my lineups in right now.
Exactly. I'm just trying to do the lineup generator. All right. Looks good. All right. We're going to take a look at another lineup here. So now we have Aiden O'Connell in the captain spot. I'd like to have multiple pass catchers from the Raiders in the lineup. If I've got AOC at captain, you've got that here. Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs, kind of a secondary pass catcher. But I believe the first game Aiden O'Connell started, he targeted Josh Jacobs quite a bit. I didn't look that up today, but I'm pretty sure that the first game
it was 11 times.
11 targets the first time he started a game. So very promising. I don't mind having Josh Jacobs as the second pass catcher for the Raiders here. And then we have no Zach Wilson. We do have Garrett Wilson and Malik Taylor in this one as a pretty low owned piece. And of course, Jets defense in there as well, which some people might not want to play. Aiden O'Connell in the captain spot with his pass catchers, and then the Jets defense. That's a way to get unique to avoid some dupes here. We're leaving 800 on the table. Looks like a great lineup to me. Any issues with this lineup, EMac?
No, I think that one's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think I like this one better than the first one, just from a likelihood of success kind of standpoint. All right, let's take a look at another one. Another Aiden O'Connell captain lineup. Now this one, just one pass catcher, Aiden O'Connell with Josh Jacobs. We've got the defense. We've got the kicker. We also have Breece Hall and the Jets defense. This one leaves 1,200 on the table. From a correlation standpoint, EMac, I don't think I like this one quite as much, just because the only pass catcher we have with Aiden O'Connell is Josh Jacobs. Aiden O'Connell hasn't really shown much rushing upside. I don't think this is one that I would play. What do you think of this one, EMac?
No, it's I can't click on it because I'm going to close this out. But no, that one, for the same reasons that you were saying. And that was one of the things I looked at. I was trying to find a reason to go with O'Connell. And it's just, there is no rushing upside. Congratulations on a broken play where he gets 17 yards up the sideline today. But
right.
Yeah, there just is. It's one of those where, like when we say Joe Burrow doesn't run, Joe Burrow can still scramble. Right. But he doesn't necessarily look for it. O'Connell doesn't even get that, right? He gets the panic, oh shit, and maybe he makes it 5 yards before the defense gang tackles him.
I mean, we do have a small. I know you tried to look at his college stats. Did you look up his rushing stats in college at all, EMac?
No, if I remember, I was looking at a few. If I remember correctly, it was just pure negatives. But they count sacks against you, so it's not. It's really not that hard to go negative as a college quarterback.
Exactly.
If you don't run much, so it's kind of a misnomer in that. And so they say, oh well, what happens in the NFL? Well, they don't count the rushing yards against you or the sacks against your quarterback's rushing totals. They do count kneel downs. They ultimately net it out of pass yards, but they don't take it away from the quarterback. They just net it out of team passing yards. For those wondering where it hides.
Yeah, that's good. Any FanDuel left? Yeah, we will do FanDuel momentarily. We do have 9 minutes left. It's not a 7:15 game. It's an 8:15. Sorry, it's a 7:20 game for us in Central Standard Time. 8:20 game for those on the East Coast. So no worries. But yeah, we will do in 1 second. We will do some FanDuel. Let's take a look at one more DraftKings lineup, and then we'll go to the end. All right, so this one, Davante Adams in the captain spot, Aiden O'Connell in there. We've got Garrett Wilson and the Jets defense, the representatives from the Jets. We also have Michael Mayer and Raiders defense in there. I think this is a great lineup. Leaves 2,200 on the table. We've got Davante Adams with his quarterback, obviously facing a tough Jets defense. We can have Aiden O'Connell throw a pick six. That's going to help this lineup. Going to get the ball back. Going to need to score some points. Jets defense gets that touchdown. I like this lineup. This looks great to me. What do you think, EMac?
No, I think that's good. An update. I didn't even have to force it, and my captains are coming out exactly like I said they would.
Nice. All right. Good to hear. Good to hear.
Running my lineups.
All right, let's take a look at some FanDuel lineups as well. First of all, excuse me, guys. I'm going to save until the end just so we can see what our exposures look like, so you can just get an idea of who are the best plays on the slate, who comes into our lineups the most. Looks like we're getting some bonus lineups. All right, so we got to, 57% Jets defense, EMac, 55% Zach Wilson, 40% Garrett Wilson, 38% 38% Davante Adams, 33% Josh Jacobs and Aiden O'Connell, 30% Jacoby Myers, Tyler Conklin, Breece Hall. Pretty much the best plays here. Any big surprises for you among these, EMac?
How much per Conklin? That sounded high.
We got to 30% Conklin.
Okay. That seems a little bit high. I mean, but he projects out as a totally steady play. We would be all over him if this was Garoppolo and Rodgers as the quarterback tonight. We would be talking about entirely different levels of value today, and it would be less. The guys that we're intrigued by are guys that are going to be on the field at an incredibly low price.
Yeah,
but they got two bad quarterbacks throwing them the ball and running the offense. So, could this game be 6-9?
Well, speaking of, Obi-Wan says double D, double kicker. This is absolutely a game where you can consider double D and double kicker because that might work out. I'm probably not doing it a ton. I haven't looked at my actual full-on lineups, but yeah, it's definitely the type of game where that could work out. All right, let's take a look at some FanDuel lineups as well. How close are you to getting your lineups in, EMac?
I'm uploading right now. I've
nice.
got the portfolio created. So.
All right, FanDuel, once again, I'm going to do all lineups, and I'm going to do standard projections.
I don't like them, but I'm playing them.
Yeah. I mean, are you going to like any lineups from this game? Not a game where you're going to be
Yes, the ones that make money. I will like those.
Yeah. Breece Hall, MVP. Tyler Conklin, Raiders defense, Jacoby Myers, Davante Adams. Looks like a solid projection. I mean, actually, this is in terms of general lineups, doesn't project all that well, and it uses the full $60,000 salary cap. I actually wouldn't play this one in a large field GPP. Again, every single lineup you get in the lineup generator has been run through the Sims. The dupes have been calculated, and these have all been found to be plus EV lineups anyway. Just not the type of lineup that I'm playing in large field GPPs. Probably a better, smaller field GPP type lineup. What do you think of this one, EMac?
Yeah, I would agree totally. It zeroes out, and there's no real contrarian plays within it. The most contrarian you have is the Raiders, and that's not really contrarian.
Yep. Okay. On the same page here. So this is, even though we know it's plus EV, we're nitpicking, not one that I would choose from the lineup generator. Second line, we've got Daniel Carlson in the MVP spot. So on FanDuel, where you don't have any kind of salary multiplier, you need Daniel Carlson to be the highest scoring player in this lineup. in this game in particular, I think that's more viable than you often see. We do have double running back from the Raiders with Josh Jacobs and Amir Abdullah. Aiden O'Connell with only the running backs, none of his primary pass catchers. But, Amir Abdullah, as EMac said earlier, theoretically the pass catching back, and Josh Jacobs, somebody who Aiden O'Connell has targeted a lot in the past as well. And then we have just Breece Hall from the Jets. I think I like this one a little bit better than the last one, just from a standpoint of we've got some lower owned pieces. We're at least leaving 500 on the table. I still don't totally love this lineup. I think that we can probably find some better lineups in here, just because I don't know how likely this one is to win. What do you think, EMac?
Yeah, you said it well. And when you're looking at FanDuel, because there's not the multiplier on the salary, you really need the highest scoring player to be your multiplier guy.
Yeah.
You can probably survive if it ends up being a low-ish scoring game and you don't have a great play here, but there's 3 touchdowns and you get all 3 of them on the rest of your lineup. You're probably going to be okay, but you're not going to win anything big. You'll min cash, and there's nothing wrong with min cashes, but it's not. You
need some of them.
Min cashes isn't even doubling up anymore, guys. You miss those days.
All right, let's find a few lineups that we do like here before. Okay, so this one's leaving 7,000 on the table. Now we've got Zach Wilson in the MVP spot with Allen Lazard, Jets defense, Devontae Adams, and Raiders defense. So this is a defensive game overall. You probably need Zach Wilson rushing a touchdown here, at least picking up some yards on the ground. We are leaving 7,000 on the table, so I would imagine anybody can be upgraded to Garrett Wilson in this lineup. So like if you wanted to upgrade to Garrett Wilson, you could. So this is a lineup that assumes that Garrett Wilson doesn't really do much. Breece Hall doesn't do much. So it
assumes Breece Hall doesn't score, Garrett Wilson doesn't score, Lazard gets the touchdown, and Wilson runs one in.
And Josh Jacobs doesn't score either, yeah.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs doesn't score. It goes to Adams.
Yep. Which is certainly plausible. It's like,
it looked like for a hot minute that who was it? That Geno Smith was going to get there without his receivers.
Right. True.
So he got some touchdowns there, right? Weird stuff happens. Weird stuff.
Yeah. So I'd say of the 3 we've looked at, this is actually the one that I would be the likeliest to play. It's still like long shot lineup. Like obviously you don't expect all these players to outscore Garrett Wilson, but this is the kind of game where strange things could happen. Maybe Garrett Wilson just like neither of the offenses gets going. Maybe the players don't score much. So really you just got Lazard, as you said, Lazard scores a touchdown. Maybe that's enough to outscore Garrett Wilson. Devontae Adams does a little bit better. It's plausible. I like it. I like it better than the other 2. Still, this one leaving 0 salary on the table. I'm just going to go through and find another one that I like better. All right. Jets defense. So this one you need Jets defense to be the highest scoring play on the slate. You need at least 1 touchdown from the Jets defense for that to work out, because you got Zach Wilson in here with both Allen Lazard and Garrett Wilson. I guess that could work out just from like a PPR yardage standpoint. If they don't score more than like 1 touchdown, I guess it's plausible. Jacoby Myers, the only player from the Raiders. Maybe he scores a touchdown and maybe they don't do much else because the Jets do have a great defense. I think it's fine. I think this is a lineup that I would play. Leaves 5,000 on the table. Any thoughts, EMac?
No, and this is a great example. And for those of you that don't want to leave 5,000 on the table, then I don't know, slightly upgrade the Jets or move Lazard up to the MVP and then change out the Jets down below. So again, you're not getting different, but all of these guys are reasonable plays. I mean, everybody but the Jets defense was in my top. I think they were all in my top 10 of the free article on the homepage. So it's like, okay. Get a scoop and score or pick 6, as Lofty likes to say, and you're smiling all the way to the bank on this one.
I mean, facing a rookie quarterback making his 4th career start, like seems plausible, seems as likely as anything. We are just about at lock now, EMac. So I think we've looked at all of the FanDuel lineups that we're going to be looking at here. Here's one more if you want it. Now we're at lock. All right. So that's going to do it for this show, guys.
So EMac, hit the like button.
Any final thoughts?
No, but we've got, I think we're back to 4 NBA games tomorrow. So We've got Monday Night Football as well. This is the sweet spot. We've got college basketball, college football. Matt Gajewski churning out projections for both. He's doing his best. He said he'll for sure have college basketball projections for Tuesdays and Saturdays, and he's trying to get them for every other day. For the love of Pete, Did you know there was college basketball on Sunday? There was. Matt Gajewski turned out those projections, as well as his huge college slate yesterday for college football and college basketball and all the NFL stuff he does. So he loves the college basketball stuff. So he said once we hit Thanksgiving and we're into bowl season, he said not a problem to do the college basketball stuff every day. So that's but he's like, damn it, I love it. And people ask me about it. I want to give them answers, and then I got to run the projections. So he's like, I might as well do it. Yeah. He lives on 0 sleep and lots of tuna, eggs, and spinach.
Yes, he does. The man is a beast. He's putting in the work for us. So we appreciate him. All right. That's going to do it for this show. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks to EMac. As always, let's win some money. Good luck tonight.